election officers when we do the regular meeting. Can we get a motion to approve the 2023 meeting dates of the Aquifer Protection Agency, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Caderas, seconded by Mr. Mercado. Any discussion? Committee meets so much, I'm sure we don't, so worried about it. Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Aquifer Protection Agency meeting. Moved Mr. Caderas, seconded by Mr. Selma, was that? Yeah, okay. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, going back to the public hearing. Reopen that back up again. Mr. Torello, is he here? No?
No, he's not here.
Okay. I think I'm gonna, we got through this a little quicker than the norm. I think I'm just gonna not recess, but put a pause on the public hearing for a little bit, just to, because some people might not be here for 7:30, and I don't want anyone to miss out on any of the Jack's Farm that's gonna happen here. I didn't think we'd get through that first meeting, those first couple of meetings that fast. So I don't want anyone to think that we started early, yes, because we had a bunch of stuff on our agenda with your stuff, but I don't want anyone to think that we're trying to rush something through. So we're going to, give it a 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and then start the public hearing for Jack's Farm. So thank you. We're at a little bit of a break. On our public hearing. So we're going to be Jack's Farm LLC. Can we hear the call for that, please? What's that, sorry? Yeah, do both, yeah.
Petition for a zone map change on behalf of Jack's Farm Housing LLC petitioner. Applicant is requesting to place the subject property, 1538 South Main Street, in an affordable housing overlay zone located at 1538 South Main Street, Assessors Map 91, Lot 167 and 167-1, zoned R40 affordable housing. Number two, application for a special permit on behalf of Jack's Farm Housing LLC. Applicant David S. Hoops, agent. Applicant is requesting a special permit for 45-unit affordable housing development pursuant to Section 44A of the zoning regulations located at 1538 South Main Street, Assessors Map 91, Lot 167 and 167-1, zoned R40 affordable housing.
Thank you, and representing the applicant tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. David Hoops on behalf of the applicant. Our team has, I believe, addressed all comments that were made by the commission, the staff, and the public 2 weeks ago. The design team will review those in a moment. I'd like to just say a couple quick things. Number one, the Inland Wetlands Commission.
Can you just pull the mic a little bit closer to you so I can? Thank you.
The Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission heard our request last week for a determination that no wetlands permit was necessary. And at the conclusion of our presentation, they determined that no proposed activities impact any wetlands or any upland review area. And secondly, with respect to the issue of school buses entering the site, and as I mentioned a couple weeks ago, the Cheshire Housing Authority is a partner in this project, and the Cheshire Housing Authority, if this application is approved, will undertake to work with the school system in order to ask them to have the school buses come into the site. Obviously, the final decision is up to the school system. And with that, I'd like to turn the mic over to Todd Ritchie of SLR.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Todd Ritchie. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut and also a board-certified environmental engineer. Since we've been here last, a couple of weeks ago, we received a memorandum dated December 12th from Wright Pierce, the town's third-party review engineer, and they acknowledged all of our comments or responses to their comments in the letters that the one letter they provided with review comments, and basically we're left with no significant outstanding technical issues as far as their comments were concerned. I know that you had a variety of questions that we took notes on last time, so we'll just go through those.
Sure.
First was to provide a vicinity plan of the project that gives distances to different surrounding structures from the proposed structures and also the parking and driveway areas. We've provided that in the submission documents that we submitted recently in anticipation of this meeting. If there's anything you'd like us to go through, I'd be happy to, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The white measurements on the plan are to adjacent properties, both to buildings and also from the buildings on those properties to buildings on the proposed development site, as well as what I mentioned, parking lots and driveway areas. Next, we have a rendering that we updated of the site. There was obviously concern about enhancing buffer plantings, screening for headlights, and some concerns about driveway circulation and headlights associated with that as well. We've enhanced the buffering. We've provided, instead of the walking path in the back, we provided that berm that was always there as part of the stormwater basin is a planted berm. That berm is at the same elevation as the parking lot. And we'll show in the cross section after this how that will provide the screening for headlights to the rear. There's also a mature row of pine trees at the rear of the property that provides some elevated screening already. And we've worked additional plantings in and around that mature pine row in the rear as much as possible to not put them directly under the pine trees in a manner that they could thrive into the future. So, and grow, as well as providing fencing along the southerly property line. We have fencing now along the 6-foot high fencing, privacy fencing along the property line. And as mentioned as preferred last meeting, a 6-foot privacy fence on top of the stone retaining wall on the north side, as well as plantings. We've also shown that the driveway now is reconfigured to have one-way enter only on the north driveway, so that to prevent headlights from exiting from vehicles in that location. And then that will carry around to this location in the rear, which is the rear parking lot, which will be two-way. And the south entrance will also be two-way and have the dedicated left-hand turning lane. It looks like actually it's this plan was not updated, but it's a dedicated right-hand turning lane with straight and left. That's what it should be revised. I think that just is something that didn't get updated on our rendering. But nonetheless, we do have two lanes, one dedicated lane in this
It is
case.
updated on our copy
Okay,
we have
yeah.
here, so.
With that, we did rotate the dumpster location a bit so that we can have the trash truck come in and make this maneuver into this space and service the dumpsters and turn around without going down the one-way aisle on the north, and then return in the two-way driveway aisle and out this south entrance. This is the section through that rear as requested also. This is the rear barn building. This is the parking lot. As you can see, the grade of the parking lot is about the same grade as the top of the berm. And then you have both the planted and mature. The back is the sort of estimated mature height of the plantings over time, and the original planting heights of these. The steeplechase arborvitae row on top of the berm, the existing pine tree row in the rear along the property line, and then you have some shade trees, I think maples and oaks spread out along this this sort of edge of the parking lot. Also had requested a photometric plan, which we received from Apex Lighting. This is the plan here showing all the proposed light pole locations and also the photometric estimated intensities, foot candles of the proposed lights. All of the lights, here's an example of the style of the light. These are all, even though they look aged or nicely designed, these are all LED lights, full cutoff, dark sky compliant, modern lighting with warm white coloring. And here's the actual top that will be on the pole. The poles are 12 feet high and 2 feet of a concrete base, which is typical. And then the light itself is at the top of the pole, which is 12 feet. So 12 plus 2 is the 14-foot max for a light pole. This is the light pole base, which is a typical concrete light pole base here. This plan shows we didn't show this last time, but we did submit it. This is updated to the current vehicle movements of the driveway. This is the largest fire apparatus for the town of Cheshire, entering the site, maneuvering the site both directions, and going around the site. Likewise, because this truck, would be the one that would have the most challenges to traverse the site, a bus would likewise be able to traverse the site a typical school bus. I think lastly, we have stormwater, and we did conduct additional test bits. We needed some additional test bits for confirmation based on comments by the reviewing engineer. So we conducted more test bits. All of the test bits conducted in the rear of the property where the stormwater systems will be positioned. It's all sand and gravel, high infiltration rates. So that all is confirmed as being adequate for the proposed design. I know there was some questions about what this system's designed for. This is a system that's partially underground. As we mentioned, there's some stormwater galleries here, and that will capture stormwater runoff from all the roofs and driveway areas and even grassed areas, everything, all the contributing areas from the property that are connected and flow in that direction, and will discharge first to this underground system that will infiltrate. But before it does that, it will go through stormwater treatment units, which remove floatables, trash, oils, debris, anything that can, potentially clog or contaminate the underground system. And that will then enter this underground system, infiltrate into the ground, and anything exceeding the capacity of this will overflow into the surface basin. Now, this rear area, as we mentioned last time, this is a surface runoff, low impact development feature so that the runoff from the rear parking lot can go over the 25-foot grass lawn area, infiltrate into the vegetation, into the ground, before it may or may not even reach the ponding area or pooling area of the stormwater retention basin. So as far as stormwater goes, everything, stormwater runoff, everything west of this berm right here, up through here, will be captured entirely within this system. Everything that flows in this direction, that already flows in that direction, will continue. And most of that is actually from the property to the north and not from this property. There's only this portion of the subject property that will actually continue to drain on to the adjacent properties, which is the natural pathway that the stormwater runoff travels now. It's not being changed. As far as capacity goes, the stormwater system requirement for design is we designed for a 100-year storm. This system will actually store a 500-year storm and beyond. So there will be no water out of this basin for that storm. A 500-year storm is almost 12 inches of water in a 24-hour period. Beyond that, it's not even something that's designed for ever, is a 1,000-year storm, and that's 13.3 inches. That will also be captured within this basin and within this system. The only reason that a overflow spillway is proposed is because it's required. If for some reason there was back-to-back hurricanes or some act of God where you have some excessive amount of water or some situation where there needs to be a path for that water to escape, then it needs to have a stabilized outlet from the stormwater management system. That's a requirement by Connecticut DEP. That concludes my comments. I don't know if there's any questions.
One that I thought I remembered, a commission member asking and also the public asking, did you guys look at all about swapping around the buildings? It's another person that,
Yeah.
I don't mean to jump the gun, but if you want to wait till.
Anything
any-
site related, I can speak to.
I'm sorry about that.
Sure.
Commission members, any questions? Mr. Bricato.
Yeah, I don't know if swapping buildings, you talk about look and feel swapping, but location of that back barn to the parking, I had asked to look at. I don't know about what you meant with swapping buildings and if it's a switch speakers. Mine's about that back barn being switched with the parking lot, one to cut off lights. The main thing is the safety. Having parking in the back of that huge building is just unsafe for this town, especially with all the cars being broken into. Catalytic converters getting stolen, kids and buses. If the kids are going to be leaving there, how do they get to the front where the bus is, where the bus is going to go? If you were to swap those two out, you'd block most of the lights at the the residents in the back are worried about. Two, you'd have the parking in the front in that little almost like courtyard area, which would be safe for a bus coming around and picking up all the kids, safe for the people, because you can light that up a little better. It's like a courtyard. It just makes no sense why it's in the back. I know you need a little access way for the fire department, so put in a little access way. But to me, I would switch those buildings around. There's no reason for it to be this way.
Yeah,
Mr.
building related, so I'll toss it over to the architect.
Mr. Tedesco.
Mr. Ritchie, yes, I was listening carefully when you were talking about the water management system and such.
Mhm.
So do I understand then from your testimony that at least for a 100-year storm, there's no increased runoff than there is at the present time? No increased runoff from the present time?
Correct. There's actually a reduction, a significant reduction.
Because that's one of the things certainly the surrounding property owners will be very concerned with. You have the people on Mulberry Court, and you're telling them now that there will not be increased runoff onto their properties, and that's important. Secondly, this was actually a very helpful little rendering. What am I looking at when this oval shaped thing here?
Sure. The oval shape, you're talking in the center? So this,
Right here.
oh, here, I'm sorry. I thought you meant in the front.
No, the back.
The back is it's basically a linear depression. So that's, there's a depression back there already. So if you go back to the cross section, this is basically, if you look at, if you have the cross section handy, the section will show that it's actually, there's a berm on one side, and there's the grade of the parking lot that grades down into that low area. So that's where the water from the surface will get
That's
impounded.
part of the water management system.
Correct, yes.
Okay, and if we go from there toward the homeowner's property on Mulberry Street, it looks like there's quite a bit of, quite a fairly large treed area there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Probably should ask the neighbors that when they come up and talk about it. But, and so none of those trees are going to be removed and those are on the affordable housing property, those trees, correct?
Correct. Those trees, mostly pine trees, are on this property, and they are mature at like 30 feet or so. Those will not be impacted. They will not be removed.
And in fact, you're putting up additional trees a little bit further toward the water management system.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Natali.
Want to go back to the trees. So, originally what I wanted to see, if the building wasn't going to be moved, was right behind those parking spaces, having the arborvitae, a wall, something at the level of a typical car, so the lights could not travel back through there. I see that you're going to plant immature arborvitae or immature evergreens near the water basin there in the back.
Well, we're going to plant typical mature arborvitaes, ones that those are 12 foot high.
Okay.
So they will grow to about 25 feet high.
And they will be still low to the ground, so that'll keep the light from going under.
Correct. If you look at the cross section, you look at the vehicles that are on there to scale, you can see that they're very much, the arborvitaes are much higher than the vehicles.
So looking at this exhibit, what's
Yes.
that gray thing going across? Is that a bridge?
That is riprap. You'd have to have riprap stabilization for any outlet from a stormwater impoundment area.
How wide is that?
How what?
How wide is that?
I'd say about 10, 15 feet wide.
So it's 10, 15 feet wide. So you're going to have a gap right in front of that parking that we're concerned about with those lights going back to the houses in the back.
Well, there's also, again, 30-foot mature pine trees in the back.
30-foot mature pine trees that have no foliage on the bottom. Those trees have it all.
We
towards
get,
the top.
again, we could add additional, we have to also have to leave, it's been well thought out why we're doing what we're doing. It's because we also have to have a place where logically where snow is going to be put in the winter time. And
Okay.
logically, that is the place to put snow along that edge of the parking lot. So putting arborvitaes there would prevent that from happening.
Well, you need, I'm sorry, in front of it, behind it somewhere, You can't have
The
10
planted, at the last meeting, the question was brought up, we want a planted berm. That's what the public said. We've provided that.
Yeah, planted berm, but nobody mentioned a planted berm with 10 to 15-foot gap for headlights to still go through.
Well, again, nobody also mentioned that there was a row of mature pine trees behind that entire area back there.
I did, and I mentioned how there's no foliage because I have that in my house. These people know that you can see right through it.
That's
right now.
correct. And again, this is all information that we can put together and we can add additional plantings on. It's not a problem.
If this were to get approved, Michael, I'd want that as a requirement.
Mhm.
That somehow that gap is, I mean, the gap is going to be there. I understand what you're saying, but there has to be something in front of it or behind it to block lights from going through there. Additionally, over where you have the trash and where you have the parking on this lower section here, if somebody's pulling in at an angle, anybody over here is not blocked by those. So I would also recommend that you extend those out to these other plantings here.
We can put fencing easily anywhere and we could put plantings in some locations. It's going to have to be decided once we establish that, whether they could be enhanced or not.
Well,
I mean,
that's part of this part of the application. So this is-
I understand
this is
that.
special permit.
No, I mean, we're getting fine tuned here. We could add plantings wherever you'd like. If you want to put them on the plan right now, we'll be happy to put them where
I would honestly, like I said, if this were to get approved, I'd personally,
we can do that as a
I wanna see
condition
those
as
there.
approval. That's not a problem. We've added a lot more planting and we've acknowledged that we've provided the planted berm as requested. We've screened what we feel is the headlights is everywhere we could see, except that we missed a gap in that you pointed out, which is notable. Thank you. And we'd be happy to fill in other gaps if you point them out.
yeah, like I said, that where that bridge is, 10 to 15-foot gap, and then again, down at the bottom here, where there's a gap, that open space here,
Correct.
there should be something there also. And also, you talked about the lighting plan. So I don't know if this is going to go for the guys who are going to talk about the building, or if it's part of the lighting plan. But at the last public hearing, somebody had mentioned that the silo were going to have some type of mesh so that you could see the lighting on the inside of those silos. And one of the questions I asked last time is why? Because we're trying to have as little light as possible. And that is causing light pollution, having that mesh there. So again, I'm not sure if that's your question or if it's a question for the other guys.
No, it's part of the building, so architect will discuss it.
Mr. Selma.
Just a quick question regarding that you call it riprap. So the oval catch basin is rated for 100-year flood or over 100-year flood.
Correct.
And theoretically, if that overflowed, it would go through that little gap and then out the back. Is that correct?
The way that water flows now, yes.
Okay. And that's rated for a 500 or even 1,000-year flood.
Correct. Let me just back up and just mention something because I know that it gets a little confusing how things are designed sometimes.
Mhm.
Most designs are required to just control the rate of flow from what it was like a fire hose or a garden hose to a garden hose like it was.
Right.
In this case, there will be zero flow out of that basin. So so all of this water that goes from the property to the back now, this basin's not going to outflow. The system's not going to outflow.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Because if the catch basin is so large and robust, why is there a gap flowing out? And what you're telling me, it's actually going to be flowing into the basin from the back edge of the property there, or side edge. of the
No,
property.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying because, again, standard design requirements through Connecticut DEP require any impoundment in a basin to have a stabilized high emergency outlet.
Okay, so that's above and beyond that.
Correct. Above and beyond what you designed it for.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and I understand. I agree with Jeff and the public as far as shielding and everything else and buffering. I mean, the sight lines that you have drawn right on the plan, actually, it's almost comical how they go right into a house from that gap. But if there's arborvitaes or something just to cover that gap, either to the east of it or whatever, I think that'd be fine. That'd be suitable. But it's just kind of silly having a large gap like that in foliage.
That's fine. Yeah, like
Yeah.
we said, we could take care of that. No problem.
All right, thank you.
Any other commission members with questions? No? Okay, we're gonna, architect is gonna be up next.
Rocco Petito, project architect, QA&M architecture in Farmington, Connecticut. You need the 195 Scott Swamp Road. So we talked to the commission last time. There are a few items. I guess the one thing to say is from the inception of this project, the concept was of a farmhouse or a farm complex. And then one that would look like or kind of have the feel of a farmhouse with other utility buildings that had been added over time. And we've tried to keep that concept through the entire process. Now, that when we have that concept initially, it was the farmhouses generally up in the front, and then the utility buildings, as they get added on later, are pushed more towards the back of the site. So that was the initial thought of how this complex came about. The next thing I'd like to add too is it was brought up that maybe we could look at rearranging the buildings, perhaps put the barn in the front. The issue we kind of have there is the complex is built around the existing topography of the site, right? So our 3-story barn is actually tucked into the hill. So from the front, it looks like it's a 2-story building. And if we had tried to put that in the front on the street, we don't have the topography at the street because it's not quite there isn't quite a site difference from that point. So that's why it's cited the way it is. Now, after our last meeting, we sat down with the Cheshire Housing Authority and we came up with the materials, or we decided on a set of materials. So the majority of the complex will be hardy board. So it would look like a clapboard siding. It's an efficient material. It's a very durable material that should look the same for many, many years. And as you see in your packets, we have the colors. So the street building, the community building is going to be white. The farmhouse is a peppery ash and a blue with white kind of mixed in to separate the elevations. And then the back house is the Cumberland red and the Navajo beige. And that's kind of shown in the second slide there. Now the barn is a little different. The material on that is a wood rain screen. So it's wood. And that the siding goes vertically. Now, as far as the silos go, we took those comments, and if you know the silos are actually the stairwells, so the maximum light that would be pumped into there is 10-foot candles is what has to be on the floor. So it's a very low light application. We also took and reduced the windows. They're basically 18-inch strips of windows that are the full height of the silo. And that's what we changed. Okay, yeah, I can say a little bit more about that. So if we wind up putting the parking lot in front of the barn, that takes away some of our efficiency. So now we have a full 3-story building that would have to sit in that parking lot area. So right now, the way it's built is we get some energy efficiency out of it because the building's being insulated by the hill that's around it. We also get this, the simplicity of scale at the front entrance. So by moving it back, it kind of defeats the purpose of putting it in the hill.
By moving it back, it would be a true
It'd be a
three-story
true
building
three-story
rather
building on
than
both sides.
than a sunken.
Yeah, and it does move the building closer to the neighbors. Good point, Dave. It moves the building closer to the neighbors by like 45 feet. They don't mind that. Okay.
No, he's talking if they switch the parking
If we
lot
switch the
and put it
parking
in
in the
front of the building, it would move the building to where the parking lot is currently now. That's how it would get closer to the Mulberry Street. Commission members, Mr. Natale.
So if the building were moved, instead of looking like a two-story building from the South Main Street side, it would look like a three-story building.
Correct.
The folks behind there are going to see 3 stories regardless.
Correct.
So for the neighbors, it really doesn't matter. So from South Main Street, sorry, who cares if it looks like a 2-story building or a 3-story building?
And you're not going to see it past all these other homes.
Also, the way that you just talked about the lighting in those silos, is there any way not to have the windows on the back? So those folks that are sitting in their living rooms or their kitchens or on their decks
Sure.
don't see those lights.
We could do that.
Or just simply tint the windows.
Well, I'd rather not have the windows.
Yeah.
And there's no chance of that light coming through, so these folks can't see it.
I still think it's a safety issue having the parking in the back with what's going on in society right now.
So Mr. Mercado did ask the question, so did it, besides the elevation from South Main Street, what was the discussion that you guys had about moving that building back? Why, what's the main driver besides that?
I mean, most of the main driver is that it sits into the hill. We do have some economies as far as the economic efficiency of the building. Because it's sitting in the hill, it's insulated by the hill.
Okay, and I understand that, but you know, it's kind of a trade-off. I mean, you know, we look at different applications across the town, and we hear about box turtles. If box turtles were there, man, we wouldn't allow something, but you know, because you're going to save a few bucks on the energy, some of the neighbors
It's
could be affected by this.
Yeah. It's energy, it's siding, it's
So Todd Ritchie again for the record. A couple other things too is that you need to have access around the full building for fire safety and rescue. So if you have the soils in the back of the property are primed for drainage. If you have that, you need like 20 feet in the back of the property. Plus you need to have the foundation of the building separated a distance from the stormwater infiltration system so that there's no water going directly into the foundation drainage system of the buildings. So there are things to consider. I mean, to be able to, as you go further towards the Route 10, so west of on the site, you get actually poorer soils for stormwater management. And you're also going up in elevation. So for stormwater management, you want to have the stormwater system at the lowest point on the property. And that's in the rear of the property as we show it.
So from the rear of the parking lot in the back of the property behind the barn, that grassy area that has, I don't know if they're maples or what kind of trees those are, what's the distance between the back side of that parking lot to where the drainage system starts?
Right now,
Out
this
here.
this grass area right here,
I can't see where you're pointing.
uh,
Yes, yes.
that's 20 feet,
Okay. So you're
25
saying-
feet.
You say that you would need a 20-foot driveway that wouldn't affect the drainage for a fire apparatus to get around it.
First of all, I didn't say driveway, but
Or
an access way.
whatever you want to, access way, whatever you want
But
to
a
call it.
fire, but if if the fire department requires a driveway, which is what they liked about this plan with the driveway around the back side of the building and on the front side of the building.
So was an access way behind, just an access way behind the building without parking, discussed with the fire department?
I didn't have the conversation, but so. I don't know if it was.
Aaron Hoffman, Mutual Housing Association of South Central Connecticut, 235 Grand Avenue. Thank you. I appreciate the commission's comments on this, and obviously, There are a lot of factors that have gone into the decision to put the building and the parking where they currently are. Todd can go into a more technical detail on, the drainage, the underground detention, the overground detention. Rocco can talk about some of the aesthetics also. I will tell you that as a developer in partnership with the Housing Authority, there is a cost moving that. Rocco's briefly talked about the economic advantages of putting the building where it is. I think conservatively, it would easily raise the price of the project by $1 million. We are a nonprofit partnering with another nonprofit to build affordable housing. And we're not a money-making venture, so I'm not trying to save money to increase my profits. There is no profit generated from the project. I'm trying to, our goal with the Housing Authority is to develop housing, to develop efficient housing, to spend the limited resources of the state and the tax credit program on efficient, good-looking, safe housing. And so, while I'm happy to have the conversation, it has a significant economic cost and would significantly negatively affect the project. And I think that screening, as Todd said, adding arborvitae, adding privacy fencing along the parking lot, along the berm. The neighbors' concerns about traffic headlights are valid, and we really want to do all that we can to protect that. But agreeing to move the building in that sense would have significant impacts on the project.
So putting this complex into Cheshire without it having the benefit of Cheshire residents that are looking for this, because they have to go on a waiting list that can be picked by anybody, that's putting a burden on Cheshire. More so than your $1 million to move this building back a little bit. There's the safety concerns. That's prime place for someone to hang out and hide. It's dark. You're not going to light it up. If you do, you're just going to tick the neighbors off that already lived there for years.
Mm.
So move the building. I would like to see it move. Just because it costs a little bit more, I don't understand that. We're not getting a benefit out of it. Cheshire's not going to see one benefit of putting this in here except to raise how many affordable housings that we have in Cheshire.
I respectfully
Then lowers the cost or mean income of this town or the mean
I
value of this town. So
I respectfully
I don't
disagree
see that.
that affordable housing has a benefit to the town. And I would say that, there will be cameras on site. There will be appropriate lighting. No cameras? There'll be cameras on site, and adding the parking between the property. I do fail to see how shielded between the buildings is a more appropriate place for parking than behind the building. We'll have the same light level, but
Todd Ritchie again for the record. I don't understand the comment about the lighting. Which area are you talking about?
Building in the back.
But the parking lot is fully lit based on the photometric plan. No, the photometric plan is entirely fully lit to adequate lighting levels throughout the whole parking lot behind the building. But the comment was that there was not adequate lighting and people would be hanging out back there because there wasn't adequate lighting, or there wouldn't be high levels of lighting.
I never said there would be inadequate lighting. I said it's a prime place for people to hide back there and to take their.
So the hiding would take place under the lighting
They still write.
when people are living in the
Shopping
building
centers.
looking at them.
Okay.
I'm just asking the question. I don't know. I'm trying to understand, but
I don't feel that that's safe when you can change this design around for a little added cost in the town of Cheshire. That's how I feel.
thank you, Rick. I guess to finally say, if the concern is lighting, then we're happy to address that with shielding it. And I believe that the design of the project, the security, the lighting, the cameras will not pose a security issue. If it is a condition of the commission, I'm not going to say that we're not going to try our best to rearrange it. Obviously, I believe in this project. I believe that affordable and mixed income housing is a benefit to the community. I understand your opposing view that affordable housing is not a benefit to the community. I appreciate that. But we will do what we will do what we can to make this project a reality. So I'm not, we can go back and forth with the different viewpoints, but we will work to make the project work.
Well, I don't speak for the whole commission. I just.
No,
speak for
I know, I
myself.
understand.
And to say I don't believe in affordable housing, I do if there's a benefit to Cheshire and the people that need to be in Cheshire, live in Cheshire, would like to stay in Cheshire, that would be a benefit in this town.
I mean, nothing. I would be very happy if, as an affordable housing operator, we have to take applicants as they come in. We don't have the ability to pick and choose. Everyone has to pass background checks. Everyone has to qualify for different reasons. But in terms of geographic, your current residency applying for a new project, we do not have. We cannot make that a requirement. But I will tell you that we get a lot of, when we build a new project, we get a lot of applicants from the town. It's advertised in the town, obviously partnering with the housing authority. The housing authority will put it out to their waiting lists. We are not shy about advertising. We're very proud of our projects. And so we will make every effort to advertise within Cheshire and really try to attract existing Cheshire residents. That's one of the things that, when I come into a community and some people don't know that much about affordable housing and they think it's people coming in from elsewhere, Anne will tell you that, it's a lot of people living with their parents and they want to move out. It's people retiring and they want to downsize. There are benefits to affordable housing for your neighbors, for everyone. There are people who have, who will apply because Cheshire's a great place to live. There will be applicants. I think everyone in this room agrees Cheshire is a great place to live. And it is my goal and the goal of Anne, the Housing Authority, and everyone involved in the project to do what we can to make this project a good neighbor for Cheshire and to, and an asset for the community. So as I said, we will do what's necessary. It's, we want to spend, we want to make something beautiful. And so I appreciate this conversation. I know that everyone is passionate about it and wants to make Cheshire a great place. And so I do appreciate this dialogue, even though we get into a little bit of back and forth sometimes. And we will do what's necessary.
It is gorgeous. It does look really nice.
Thank you. I mean, that's all praise to Rocco and to Tom at QA&M. They really put a lot of thought. They had a lot of meetings over the course of this process. I don't know if Dave wants to say something further, but that's the bottom line is that we have been working on this project with the Housing Authority for a long time now, and we will, we want to make it happen. So, doing what's necessary, we'll keep working on it, and that's.
Can I just make one quick suggestion or a thought that I'm just having here?
Sure.
I don't think I agree with moving that building all the way towards the back. I don't think that would be, I just don't think that would work. But was there any thought to, if you continue to have the road that went behind the building, the easternmost parking spaces, any thought of taking those out and possibly putting just that row or an equal amount of that in front of the building where, so now you'd still have the cars that could travel around the back of the building, but you would not have any cars that would pull in towards the neighbors on Mulberry. You would just have parking that would turn back towards the west side, towards the Route 10 side. I mean, granted, somebody could back up, but most of the time people, I don't know if there's enough parking on. I know you need the parking and I'm not sure. Was there any thought to, I don't know how many spots there are there, but maybe you could pick them up by
I'm not positive that the
loading up the
interior
front of the other side.
oval could accommodate the required parking. We obviously don't want, we are exceeding the parking by the parking requirements by a couple spaces. But I don't believe even if we decreased it to the minimum required amount that we could fit it there. And moving just the building, just that space. I'm sorry, you're not talking about moving.
Leaving the
just talking
building
about-
there,
so yeah.
just sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe that a combination of increased planting and privacy fencing
I
will.
tend to agree with you that it might work out too. I just thinking out of the box. If, you know, I understand it'd be kind of hard to not have a road that went through there, and I really don't think you'd want the building moved back towards the neighbors. I don't see that. I don't know. I don't see that. I don't think that would
Yep.
that would work at all. But and I just thought maybe if there was a way to reappropriate those parking spots that were there on the east side of that. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there.
It's Todd Ritchie again. I don't have a count on those parking spaces on the east side, but there's a majority, a lot of parking along that stretch. We've, even as you see it right now, we've basically maxed out all parking on the site. That's reasonable to geometrically enter and exit safely as a parking space. So taking all of that parking out, we don't even have, if you were going to move it, we don't have any other spaces because we don't have any space now to add any. So that's the simple answer.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if they're going to move the easternmost parking, you're looking at 26 spaces to relocate.
Yeah.
That's a tough task to.
Okay. If you guys have any other changes you want to do, I want to get to the public too, to give them a chance to speak.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the commission's time.
Did you have some more? We'd have a couple more questions. I wasn't trying to cut you off. I
no,
didn't know if
we're-
you had more to do.
No,
Okay.
any more questions?
Mr. Natale.
I just want to say I'm not against affordable housing. So
No, I'm not.
want to get that on the record there. But one of the concerns that I have here comes from the property next door also. So I mentioned this last time when VCA, the veterinary hospital expanded. We sat here and we were so proud of ourselves because they put in so many extra trees there.
Mhm.
None of these neighbors were going to be affected. Well, they were affected. They were affected.
Yeah.
So why I keep pushing for those arborvitae or more foliage there, I want overkill because these folks already suffered when VCA was done.
Can I ask, and this is my ignorance, not as an engineer or design professional, but privacy fencing with slatting, while not, would be more effective year round. Is that something the
Well,
commission would be interested in seeing?
Like I said at
more
the last
privacy
meeting,
fencing?
and I said again a couple minutes ago, I'd like to see something right in front of those parking spaces, a little wall, something that's at that level. So when those cars are coming in, it blocks it. You don't have to worry about the foliage. You don't have to worry about, trees getting big and, eventually the lights going underneath there. I mean, you're talking, a wall that's like that big. We're not talking about adding $1 million like you indicated if they move the building, but just something right there that's
Yeah.
going to block it.
My concern was
I'm sure
putting,
that with the farm look, the stone walls
Mhm.
on the farms, something would work well there.
yeah. So my concern with the wall right along the parking spaces would be plowing because we're constrained in the back.
But aren't you going
putting-
to have the stoppers on the parking spots? I saw that in the,
Yeah, no, of
plans.
course, the parking, but they push the snow over the
Okay.
stopper. I mean, so if we put fencing, the privacy fencing there along the back of that, but in the 20-foot gap between the parking spaces and the detention area.
Mhm.
So, thank you. So if we put privacy fencing in front of these trees,
Mhm.
or, yeah.
Yep.
In this area, and that would screen sufficiently.
I think so. I mean, we'll listen to the public what they think there, but that's going to block the lights as long as it goes the full length.
Yeah.
And on that corner, in addition to those arborvitae,
Yeah.
I don't see the light getting through there.
Okay, that
Yeah,
seems reasonable.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good compromise because it still gives you the room to put your snow, as you said.
I just have one comment. We could put, did you say in addition to the arborvitae on the berm? Is that what you're? Okay, correct. We just can't put arborvitae on that side because that's where the sheet
Yeah,
flow for the
we're
drainage.
talking about a fence. though.
Yeah.
Just just for clarification, are we talking about a privacy fence? What's the height? We saying 6 feet, solid, stockade?
Whatever's going to block the car lights. So I mean.
No,
the
I just
car-
want clarity for the record. I know as we have the hearing
I
still
mean, for
open.
car lights, you know,
4
you could
feet
have
would be-
SUVs, so 4 to 6 feet.
And Jeff,
Probably
too,
adequate.
if instead of, and I don't know what's more cost effective, but either a fence between the water basin and those trees or a 3-foot retaining wall, so you have plenty of room for snow, but you still have a small wall blocking light,
I think
headlights.
the fence would be more effective there because we have to allow part of the drainage system has to allow water to sheet over
Yeah,
that area.
Michael, to answer your question, not a chain link fence where you're going to go through it. Something's going to block it.
That's, I just want to be clear on the record.
Okay, commission members, any other questions? Do you guys have anything else to add before I go to the public?
No, thank you
Okay,
very much.
Thanks. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Sure. We just need you to come up to the mic, need your name and address for the record, and you can ask away.
I have the map of the,
I just need your name and address for the,
Bob Canelli, 7 Mulberry Court. Canelli. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Bob. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I just for you guys, thank you for what you're doing. We appreciate it, but you got to understand, we've lived here for 35 years. Okay, my lot is right here. Okay, so right here is that gap that we're talking about. Right now, I could see right through. There's nothing there. There's 9 trees, the evergreens. There's only 9 of them. 8 of them start in Goldstein's. There's only 1 on my side here. You're going to put dumpsters here. Okay, that's what I assume. That's what I heard. So right now, there's nothing here, but you're saying you're going to do stuff there, so that's good. You guys got to understand our point of view, or my point of view. When I moved here, this was a horse farm with 1 house on Route 10 and a driveway. The horses eventually, went away, and some stuff filled in. And now from here, I'm looking at all of this. So you got to understand our point of view of how this affects all of us. This is big. This is huge. These are buildings. Now, the original plan where this parking lot is going to be, that was supposed to be crops, fields of crops where they were going to cultivate and sell. And then there was barns with the parking underneath. We heard that the fire department said you couldn't do that. Is there something in writing from the fire department that says that? I don't know. I'm just wondering that was a safety issue. There's also a wired fence across our property, the Goldsteins. I don't know if it goes into the Peppies. I think it does, yeah. It's wired and it's, in my area, it's busted. I don't know if that's your property, that fence is there, but what are you going to do with that? I know we came to the wetlands last week. We couldn't speak. We wanted to speak because, and I know Mr. Pepe's going to talk about this, but there's some issues with the water and where Mr. Pepe lives, and I'm sure he's going to talk about that. One last thing. I agree. If the parking lot is here, even if it's lit and you have 100 cars, whatever how many cars there is, that building is blocking. And I know you have cameras. If something happens, where is someone going to exit? Right through my yard, Goldstein's yard, Pepe's yard, down here, and into our street, just like that. Where else are they going to go? Right through our property. I agree with you that is a safety issue, and we really got to look at that. That's a lot of cars, and we know what's going on, and my back property faces up to that. And, I have to keep my lights on as it is at night because, of what's going on. So I just wanted to put that out there. This is not the original plan, and the original plan, we were going to do the easement right through our property. we agreed on it because of what was going on there. Now, with all of this, we said no. We said no, and that's going to cost some money. I don't know, what's going to end up happening with that. That's it for me. But I just want to let you know that this is very overwhelming when when you look at this.
Question, Mr. Kennelly?
Yes,
You said you're 7. Are you the blue house at the end?
yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah,
Are you the one right on the curve? I walk down your street a lot.
I know. I see you all the time. I've been watching you. I have all the Christmas decorations.
And in fact, I walked down the street yesterday during the afternoon.
I saw you.
Yeah, I did not trespass, and so I really couldn't see. It would have been nice to walk really down the driveway and see. I didn't because
Yeah.
that would be trespassing. We really should ask whether we could do that in the future because
Absolutely. Come and see.
well, it's kind of late now for that. Okay, so you're the house that's closest to the vet hospital, I guess, correct?
That's Mr. Pepe.
He's the
Okay, so
furthest north.
let me try to get this straight. There's a house that's kind of a modern design.
That's Goldstein. That's this lot right here.
Okay, and the one, if I was facing that to the left, is that you?
That's Pepe, and that's me. So it's yellow. Then the contemporary is Goldstein, and then Pepe's here,
And where are you?
and Caligari's over here, right here. So I'm where the gap is. I have the reindeer on my lawn. And if you want to stop by, you'll get fed too. So I'm here.
Contemporary right there.
Yeah,
And which one is you?
right here.
Oh, on the other side is the contemporary.
Yeah.
And this is,
Pepe.
and you're number 7.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Okay. We allowed Pepe to come in.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Brendan Devine, 6 Mulberry Court. Brendan. First off, I just want to thank everybody for taking their time tonight to be here and for everything that you guys are doing. I do appreciate and see the value in affordable housing, so I do appreciate it, and you guys being willing to listen to our concerns. My issue obviously isn't with the concept of affordable housing. My issue is with the size of that structure in the backyard. This is something that I am going to look out my front yard. I'm going to look out, the windows of my bedroom, and I am going to see every single day. The fact of the matter is, this project does sit at a higher elevation than our neighborhood, slightly, not drastically. But this is a very big building that is going in the backyard of these residents. Just out of curiosity, and for the architect, how tall is the barn going to be total in height? Do you have that number?
They can answer that. He can figure it out and answer
Okay.
while you
Okay.
continue to go. So,
Because that is obviously a concern. Having a structure that could be, 35 to 40 feet tall in our backyard just really is something that is a little bit of a concern. We obviously moved into this neighborhood about almost 10 years ago because it had that quiet, private feel to it. And I'm finding it hard to believe that with that size of a structure in the backyard, it's going to remain that way. The farmhouses, I think, are absolutely beautiful. I love the design. I love the look of them. And I wish there was some way that, those types of structures could be in the backyard, because I think people would feel much more comfortable with this project if something like that was the case. I think it would also match the overall aesthetic of our neighborhood a lot better. Because the fact of the matter is we don't have a structure this size anywhere near us. I mean, the closest thing I can think of is the medical building, pretty much right across the street here, if it's roughly that size. I know in the beginning of this project, when you guys took over, we had meetings, and I heard a number of times that you wanted to be good neighbors, and we appreciate that. And I appreciate, like I said, that you guys are willing to take our feelings and our concerns into account. And I understand that you guys technically don't have to do this. You can pretty much do what you want. But I think, honestly, if I asked everybody in this room, I think I would be very hard pressed to find anybody who would be excited and happy about having a structure this size in their backyard. And I just, would hope that you guys would take that into consideration. So thank you.
thank you. Anyone else from the public? If you guys, if there's a lot of people that are going to speak, if you want to come on up, we can start a line here and won't have a delay in between.
Frank Pepe, 11 Mulberry Court. Thanks again to the commission. At the last public hearing, I voiced concern about the noise, light, and water pollution potentially from the Jack's Farm proposal, if accepted as presented. I requested that the special application permit be tabled until a full inland wetland review was completed. I learned that same evening that a determination was on the agenda for the December 6th Inland Wetland Commission meeting. I wrote a summary of my concerns regarding the water runoff and requested a public hearing and emailed our town manager, and he responded that he would forward to Mr. Mike Strollo on the Inland Wetland Commission. As Bob had stated, we attended the commission, and their response or their statement was that they had not received any public communication. For whatever reason, my concerns were not forwarded or were not received. Therefore, that evening, a permit was deemed unnecessary. I don't fault the IWC for this decision, since the information before the commissioner stated that the project was not within 50 feet of protected wetlands. If I had had the opportunity, I would have repeated what I stated here on the 28th. The submitted drawings underrepresent the size of the waterway which sits on my property. It seasonally expands and recedes. Annually, the wetlands have doubled, tripled, completely covered the entire rear of my property. If I'm allowed to, I just have a photo I could share with you to illustrate, since there's been some information presented, but it doesn't seem like there's a different lens. If I can approach.
Sure. If this is gonna, it's got to be received into the record, and then we can all take a look at it after that.
So there's two pictures that you'll see in a moment. And the first picture I took a few days ago after last Saturday's rain. The area that you see in that picture was completely dry a week prior. Again, the protected aquifer, the water recedes, and it also expands based on the level of water. In that first picture and in the second picture, you could also clearly see the vet in the left-hand corner. Now, as a matter of reference, the distance between my property line and the trees that you see, the trees that were referenced, that the vet planted after they had to install a new septic system, is approximately 100 feet. Coincidentally, that's the same distance right now that, well, at first we were promised would be the buffer between Jack's Farm and the abutters. The 100 feet. When I first moved into 11 Mulberry Court, I had no idea, I could not see the vet behind me. You can clearly see the building in both photos. And at night, you can see the lights. Now, the vet was very kind, and as I stated at the last meeting, there were, I think, originally 4 trees that they had said they would plant, and they upped it to, there must be 10 or 12 trees that they put in. Douglas fir, 10-footers. And maybe one day, when my kids inherit the house when I die, the lights and everything else will be blocked, because every night headlights come through. So I can appreciate all the discussion this evening about trying to create a berm and arborvitae and screening to prevent the headlight from coming through. I just don't see it happening. I don't know if I would be here again tonight if the original buffer was preserved. The 100-foot buffer, it was actually 90 foot, that through all of the conversations that occurred with the Kennellys about granting an easement, and it'll be written into the plans. You don't have to worry. That will always be there, the wooded area. It's now gone. And last time I talked a little bit about the trust factor. And there's been some misrepresentation, and there continues to be misrepresentation. The second picture that is in that 2-page packet is just an example of how the waterway flexes. It has gone double and triple that second picture. In the plans that are submitted to you, that waterway is vastly underrepresented. I would propose to you that based on the drawings that I examined that were submitted, the new grading for Jack's Farm brings the disruption of soil up to 30 feet to the property line. Again, the buffer is supposed to be 90 feet, so we've lost 60 feet. Last meeting, there was a discussion about the vernal pool. The vernal pool was sort of that point, that line of demarcation that wasn't going to be crossed because it was a vernal pool, no longer deemed a vernal pool, because the frogs that mate every single year in my back pond don't hop over to that man-made depression, which is going to be filled in. If the buffer were still intact, it probably wouldn't be as much of an issue because the headlights would be screened. The headlights that I never saw from the vet that I see every single night wouldn't be seen. The problem is the redesign of the entire project pushed the parking that was underneath the building, understood, fire department said can't have it, pushed it to a parking lot, which pushed the water retention basin, which now is eating up the 90-foot buffer down to 30. When I said the misrepresentation, I'll give a couple of examples just of this evening. The line of mature trees that were referenced from my property bordering the doctor's property, it's 4. He actually, when I first moved in, told me about that he planted them when his kids were born. That was 40 some odd years ago. Now they're mature. One of the commissioners asked about all the plantings in front, that heavily wooded area, and would that be disturbed? The answer is yes. It's disturbed. We lost 60 of those 90 feet because you can't regrade the area if you don't disturb the plantings. I don't know what the solution is. I know that based on the regrading and based on the actual water that is in the protected area, by my measurement, it is well within 50 feet. I couldn't express that at inland wetlands. There wasn't a public hearing. So I'm leaving it with you. My request is the same as last meeting. I think this has to have a full review, inland wetland, with the actual capture, representation of the waterway that sits, that is the protected area. When the buffer was there, it wasn't a concern because it was 60 more feet away. Now that 60 feet are gone, it's within the 50. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
I have one question for you, sir. You personally,
I did.
okay.
I did. And the top one is on the top, it's dated today because I printed it today. Obviously, if it was taken today,
I saw that.
you would see snow.
Yeah.
But that was, again, that was
That's when you
after
might
last
think
week.
it's snow, but it's water.
Yeah, so that was after last year's snow melt.
Yeah.
And you can see how vastly different, and that is by no means as large as that water retention area, the protected wetlands that's on my property.
Now, that fire pit that I see here
Mhm.
is how far from the circle or the fire pit would you guess that the water came? It's hard to judge by the
Oh, sure.
picture.
So there's about a 3-foot grade difference between where that pit is and where the water collects. But when the water collects, it collects almost to the top of that grade. There is
I can see
a
it.
bald cypress that, and someone had mentioned walking the area anytime you'd like to, because you could see where the bald cypress, if you were to look at the root base, where it shoots off new roots because it's a water loving plant. And when that water raises to the 2 or 3 feet, it continues to push.
I see a lot of these tall trees. They look like they're ready to all die.
So when you look at the picture and you can see where obviously where the vet is, and then to the right is the property, the proposed project. It's a heavily thicket area. Again, that's going to be lost
Where does this water come in from?
from underneath. It's a protected aquifer. So I was very interested this evening when you set the dates for the aquifer meetings, because that is listed on the DEP. If you go online, you could see actually Greenspan's property is also sitting, it's protected aquifer land.
Okay, but there's swale in between your property and the property of question, right? The property they're coming in from.
Correct.
So
There's a change in grade. It because I sit downstream, so to speak, from Greenspan's property. Topographically,
but this water coming in is not coming in from the Greenspan property.
yeah, and I'm not stating that it is the aquifer. I'm not stating that. My concern is, sure, runoff is always going to be a concern. What I'm stating this evening is, if you take a look at the vast area defined by inland wetland that is the protected area, based on the new drawings and based on the new proposal, it comes within 50 feet of the disturbed soils in order to create Jack's Farm, based on the new drawings, based on having to push everything back towards the abutters. Once that happened, once the parking went from underneath the barn, and the barns also were juxtaposed at an angle further up originally. I understand that now it's joined and the combination of the two is less square footage than the two separated. But one of the reasons that the two buildings were separated and sat at an angle were to push them further away from the abutters. It's now joined in back. The parking got pushed back further, which then pushed back the water retention area.
But unfortunately for you, for us, the experts that are here giving their opinion, that's not what they're coming up with.
Absolutely, which is
Which
is why I'm going to take a deep breath, which is why I talked last time about the trust factor, about what has been presented all along for years, and then what is now before.
No, I understand the change, but what they're representing is what they have in front of us now, that this does not propose a problem for them. That's the hard thing that I have.
Well,
because
it's
I
the
understand
same-
it's your backyard. I understand you see it all the, every day, all the time. But for us to sit up here, we're not the experts on this, and we kind of have to listen to an expert from SLR who tells us, and frankly, our engineer in the town of Cheshire also, who tends to agree with him. So I mean, I
know.
trying to-
I've listened to all of it, which is why I figured I'd show you a picture, right? Because again, aside from the water runoff, and I think what is potentially infringing on a protected wetland area, I commented on the other items in terms of screening and what's actually going to be screened and what isn't going to be screened. Because to think that the arborvitaes on a berm are going to screen the headlights is not the case, because it's something that the neighbors live every single night. That's why I shared the picture to show you, just in the daylight, you could see. A picture at night when everything else is darkened and the parking lot lights and the headlights and the lights on the building. And part of that challenge, the reason why it's so visible, why the vet is so visible, is that 90 to 100 feet when I moved in ended up being cut in order to put in the septic tank. Well, now we're proposing to lose that same distance in back of Jack's Farm because everything has been pushed back towards the abutters. So it's not so much a dispute on, I'm not a soil scientist. I can give you my observations. I'm pointing out some of the inaccuracies of what's being presented because as you're stating, you're being presented with information from experts. My expertise comes from living there and seeing what's happening.
Sure, Mr. Natale.
So, Mr. Pepe, you're saying, we can see these are very helpful pictures, actually, and we can see the ponds in them. You're saying that the size of these ponds will be increased because of this project?
No, I'm saying that I'm just illustrating two different points in times to show you, to illustrate that waterway doubles and triples in size. Based on that, when I looked at the drawings and the representation of the standing water that was taken in a one point in time, my feeling and opinion is the drawings vastly underrepresent the waterway in my backyard, which is protected. If you consider that it's much larger than was in the submitted drawings, and you consider that now the project for Jack's Farm is pushed closer to the line, I'm suggesting that the project is now infringing on that 50-foot
Wetland.
typical wetland buffer that is required to steer away from. And it was never before an issue before last meeting when, again, we looked at the new plans and they showed that everything had been pushed back.
Now I have a question to ask you, Doug. I know you took the pictures. I turned it off. I had it on all the time. I just turned it off. I'm sorry. I know you said you took the pictures.
Yes.
I appreciate you telling us that. You have the dates, you have your name and everything. And this was taken when the rain was there, but I can tell by the trees that it's got to be wet there all the time.
There are periods of time that it
if
dries
somebody-
out.
At the pictures I'm looking at, all the bark is peeling off.
Yes.
The trees are all
Yes.
green. I'm a builder. I dealt with a lot of land in my life, and I'm an old man now. I'm 83 years old. And I know, and I see the fungus all over the trees and the bark falling off. Those trees are dying. Why are they dying? Because they're in a wet area.
There's only certain
You know.
species that are able to survive in that area. The
Right.
bald cypress is the one
Yeah.
that I planted, weeping willow.
Well,
But the
weeping
others-
Willow's the best tree because they drink gallons and gallons
Sure.
of water. But nevertheless, I appreciate this picture because it gives me an idea. But I want to make sure that the applicant has the same picture. Yeah, okay. So you can appreciate what I'm trying to relay to understand this. You know, I thought, it looks to me like it's a hill going down. Is that correct?
From both the vet and
Is that
Dr.
deck-
Greenspan
is
to that area.
deck your deck right there?
Yes, so that's a second story deck.
Yeah, so looking at this picture, it looks like it's.
So
going-
from my living room, it's eye level
Yeah.
with essentially the lights and the cars that are in and out of the vet, which again is what I can expect to see
Yeah, no, I got you.
when Jack's Farm, because that buffer area has been lost.
I think that a field trip, or if not, if we can get permission to go look at this because, you know, I'm open-minded. I hear what you're saying. I hear what the applicant's saying, and I like to see for myself because I feel that I'm not an engineer, but I have a lot of years of understanding land, and, you know, I invest in land my whole life, so I have some good understanding of it. But I would like to go look at it, is what I'm saying. You know, I realize because of the picture, I'm glad you said, yes, you did it, because I know we got 3 inches of rain, but this is a lot more than 3 inches of rain.
Yeah.
So I would like to take a field trip if that would be okay, because you're going to continue this. Does that understand?
Would the applicant be okay with the members of the commission? I don't think we need a meeting, but at least on our own. Well, it's kind of hard to get to from Route 10. I don't know if there's a driveway there. I don't know what there is that could get you back to this area. Or you know, the residents.
No,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
And if you do see us, any of us on your property, please, we cannot talk to you. We cannot have you just have to be, just ignore us. Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. And would the applicant be opposed to granting us an extension on this public hearing?
Mr. Chairman, we really do need to have a vote by January 9 for very important scheduling reasons. I'll just put that on the table. But I don't believe that there's any reason, and Mr. Glidden can correct me if he disagrees, if there's any reason. Well, a commission is always allowed to view a site.
I'm sorry, I can't. I can't pick it up what you're saying.
Commission members may use their own knowledge of a locale at a site. Commission members may view a site. They can do that outside of a public hearing setting. I'm not sure it would.
I understand that part of
Right.
it, but the only issue is if the public hearing was closed, if we did have questions or comments, obviously we would not be able to get them addressed by you guys.
Our main, I understand, and our main concern is that a vote be taken on January 9th. I realize that's simply a request. We can't require that, but that is our request. And that would not be inconsistent with what you're suggesting.
Well, I mean, we could, if the hearing stayed open, when is our January meeting?
January 9th.
January 9th.
All right,
And-
so hearing open, if we had questions that night, we could ask them. then
And
vote
close
that
it
night.
and then vote that night also.
Right.
That's not optimal, but it's.
I know,
sometimes
it's
you have to do that.
It looks, public hearing must close by January 2nd. So if he gives a 7-day extension to keep it open till the 9th, wouldn't that be sufficient? Michael, maybe you could.
I was
yes, but he's
actually-
asking for a vote on the 9th. That's why when,
Yeah, we have to.
I mean,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I think there's an important point to be made, and I don't know if that will affect your thinking about a field trip. Much, in all due respect, of Mr. Pepe's presentation really wasn't relevant to the issue. There was an assumption that pervaded everything he said, that if there's standing water in a spot during a particular part of the year, that means that's a wetland. It doesn't mean it's a wetland. A wetland is defined by soils. So I'm not really sure what purpose would be served by going out and looking at a pond to see how big it is or how big it isn't. Another point is that even if the pond on Mr. Pepe's property is a wetland, and even if it goes right up to the property line, we're not doing anything within 50 feet of that anyway. So it's all, again, I'm never going to say I'm against a field trip or against questions or anything. I'm just not sure what would be accomplished that hasn't already been accomplished by looking at the pictures that Mr. Pepe has presented by a field trip.
Well, I'd just like to say, I did drive by, but again, I'm looking at it from the street. I'm not looking at it from the backyards. And I didn't go to Mr. Pepe's property or anybody in particular. I've drove down the street, stopped between the houses so I could see that property. For me, these pictures are a little telling too, because what we heard was there's existing vegetation that's going to block the view. They're not going to really, see this big building that's back there. And, looking at Mr. Pepe's pictures here without the foliage, I don't know. I think that, going up the street, you're probably going to see through there. So, I would like to see that. And Michael, correct me if I'm wrong. So we have the public hearing's got to close by the 2nd, but our mandatory action date's not until March.
So
Correct.
by statute, you have 35 days to close the public hearing. Then after the close of the public hearing, you have 65 days to actually act on an application.
Right.
Which any of those dates can be extended by 65 days with agreement from the applicant.
Right. And I understand what you're saying about making a decision, that you need a decision by the 9th, but statutorily, we don't have to make that decision until March.
Correct.
So I think that, I'd like to see some leeway there, to at least extend that to our next meeting to give us a chance to go out there, whether it's, in somebody's driveway or somebody's backyard. I think that's more advantageous for you.
Yeah, I think it's very important.
And again, we're not talking, because of the legality of it, we can't go out there as a commission because that's a public meeting.
But we could, but I don't think
So
that's
we don't want to do
necessary
that,
in
'cause
this.
then you have to handle all that.
It's
So it'd be,
not-
one or two people going out at a time to different properties. It's not the whole commission going together, because then you would have to be there and all that. So this is just private. And again, if we go out to the properties, we're not talking to you about the application. We can't talk to you if we come to your yard. So if you see us there, wave, but we can't talk about it because we're not here.
Could I just make a suggestion? As your staff, I prefer if you're going to go out, you're going to go to the subject property, not to the neighbors' backyards. Because that just has ripe for issues from an FOI standpoint, ex-party communication. So if you're going to look at it, if you want to see it from Mulberry Court, you could see it from the public right-of-way, that's fine. But really, you should be at the subject property. So pull up the driveway, park at the house, look through the backyard, which if the vegetation stand isn't as robust as the neighbors are claiming, then you could see that either way. But I prefer that you're at the subject property, not off-site.
Okay, that's fair.
And that house is vacant?
No.
Someone there?
You have permission from the app. I just want to confirm.
Mr. Greenspan is a tenant of the property. The project, we are the legal owners of the property, and you have our permission to get onto the site. There's a very overgrown path. It's probably been, there's a vehicle that drove down last week, so there may be easier to get back, but it's brambles right at the back edge. But if you're willing to brave the brambles, you can get pretty close to the edge of the property where that the wire fence that
And
they
you'll notify him that there
Yeah,
might
of
be
course.
people coming and going?
Yep.
Okay.
And maybe if possible, we can coordinate with me. You can email me when you're going there. So then, I can attend with a few of you that visit. That way it's just controlled.
Yeah, but we don't have to go as a group. Legally, if I want to go there, if I had their permission, I'm a commission member. I have a right to go there on my own.
Correct. But I would just, I'm just saying, let's make it so it's not, we're going out there, but not as a quorum. That's the key.
Well, that's right, because that can be a major future lawsuit.
Exactly. And then the other thing is what the applicant has the applicant agreed to an extension then?
Yes.
So
I'll send that.
I have a written request for the extension to keep the hearing open. I'm suggesting 14 days, although we only need 7, just in case it's January and it snows. And we have to set a special meeting up the following week or another day that week. I would like to just have that insurance in there. So I will hand it to the applicant to sign.
Okay.
I really think this will be beneficial to the commission members and both be able to see both sides. I'm listening to what they say and, then I see this picture here. I like to see it for myself. I can make a unbiased opinion, I'm only one vote, but I got the most seniority,
So one point I would like to make as you do look at the site, and again, in response to a couple things Mr. Pepe said. Number one, this is a little bit of as an aside. I think he suggested that there will be tree clearing in the area behind the detention pond. In other words, the 50-foot strip between the property line and the detention pond. There's not going to be any tree clearing in that area. And secondly, when you do look at the mature pine trees that are already there, I'd ask you to bear in mind, again, contrary to an implication that Mr. Pepe made, if not an outright statement, we have never said that those mature trees provide an absolute visual screen. That's why that's only really the final line of the fence. That's why we've provided all the other screening and why we're willing to provide even more, whatever it takes. The only point that we were making about the existing trees is it helps the screening that we're going to otherwise provide.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Go first. Lou, Lou, did you have a question? You just seemed like you did before.
No, I was gonna say, so if we went to Dr. Greenspan's property now, and went up the driveway and parked there, went behind the house, then we could see the area that we're talking about. Is that correct? I think I was there once, 30 or 40 years ago. I don't know.
So you'll be parking here. I would ask you now to leave some parking for Mr. Greenspan if there's multiple cars, just to park closer to the street so that we don't block his parking. But you'll be able to get,
I can walk there from my house.
oh yeah, you'll be able to get to this corner of the property, barring brambles and snow and mud and anything else in there. But there's no fencing that would prevent you. And you have our permission to, and we will notify Dr. Greenspan, so he's not surprised. He may come out and say hi, but
One more,
Maybe I'll go when Michael goes, and you can show me.
Yeah. One more comment for you. So I got to apologize to Mr. Pepe because when I requested, the fence behind the cars, that's good. And then the arborvitae down here to block that other open area, I neglected to notice that the cars will be driving over here and there's no buffer between Mr. Pepe's property and cars will be driving down this driveway.
I'm sorry, just to be clear,
Yes.
you're talking about
So if somebody's driving
over
through-
here.
Yeah, right there before you take that curve. That's going back.
This is the generator and will be fully screened. And I think we can extend the privacy fencing
Gotcha.
to connect with the
Okay.
generator.
Yeah,
screening.
again, I apologize. I neglected to notice that before, but that's open there too.
No, that makes sense to have it go from the enclosure here to the enclosure here.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to the public. She's been waiting patiently.
Thank you. I'll be quick. Joan Valenti, 9 South Pond Circle. TI. 9 South Pond Circle. Okay. So first of all, I do want to thank the commission for all your really thoughtful comments and on this project. It's really nice, to hear that. I have a couple of things I want to just address. One is I am no expert in agriculture, but arborvitae aren't going to do the trick. And there will be, because the deer we have in our area, there's something to be said for coming out to the site and being there and living there. So deer are prevalent. Hard to believe in such a populated area, but they are prevalent. And arborvitae will be eaten 6 feet up. So they will provide no blockage of lights. So I request that in this project that you require deer-resistant plantings to block any light, anything you're doing for to block any of the light coming through. Because I have them, and my, half our neighbors have them, and they look really neat. You've all seen them around the town, eaten up and just tops.
And there is a deer-resistant arborvitae. that they
Okay,
can-
so I just want to make sure that that's what's required there. It's deer resistant. And then I think the fence, again, having had a project put in our backyard, and it's housing, and I'm appreciative of that, but plantings are not, they don't last forever. And there's so many things, disease, whatever, that can get to them. So I think the fence right behind the parking lot is a really great idea to provide the utmost at least protection from the light. But it needs to go all the way across. And as you pointed out, there is a corner there that's not protected at all.
I think the applicant just agreed to go all the way across.
Yeah. And then lastly, to address the safety issue, I think your points are very well taken. That large parking lot behind a large building does offer, I think, opportunity for, what we see already between the catalytic converters, the cars being broken into, is really protected from the main road. And because of the nice road in and out, it's good, easy access in and out. Cameras don't prevent, they're an afterthought, so they really don't do anything for safety. You can see what happened after, but you really don't get to do much about it, except know that it happened. So that's just my comment on cameras. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ema Canelli, I'll spell it, IMMA CANELLI, 7 Mulberry Court. Thank you. Thank you again to the commission and the commissioners. We know you spent a lot of time with us and we really appreciate all the time you've taken and listened. And as Joan said, really, really thoughtful conversation. We're not privy to the plans that you received tonight, so we're kind of like trying to figure out what they are, but we really appreciate the way you're looking through them. I spoke at the last meeting, so I'm not going to reiterate what I spoke about, but I wanted to take the time tonight to really let you hear what the sequence of events was with this project. My husband and I live at 7 Mulberry Court, abutters to the property. Back in February of 2019 through March of 2019, we found out that the project went through inland wetlands. We found this out in a newspaper article and so that's okay. Fine, we found out about it, so it was okay. But what was really interesting was, when the Housing Authority found out that we found out about it, they were cordially invited us to a meeting at their property, and they presented an outstanding PowerPoint presentation of what Jack's Farm looked like. And I have to say, when we left that meeting, we were pretty excited about the project. I am not here to tell you I don't believe in affordable housing. I have no problem with affordable housing. It's what it looks like that's the question. And so when we left that property, Peter Hansen was in the project, and Louis Nero from the Housing Authority wanted to come to our home to talk to us about an easement. So we said, okay, I don't know if you need all these presented, but at that point, they brought us a nice drawing, of where the easement could go. A little bit in the corner, you can see where the two buildings were that people were referencing. And I can submit any of these if you want them. You probably don't need them because I know you probably already have them. And so my husband, Bob, and I sat down and talked to him, had a, really good conversation. We saw the plans and we're like, okay, well, this probably isn't okay. And so then didn't hear anything for a while. And in April of 2020, we received a letter from Ann Belcher from the Cheshire Housing Authority. And in that letter, she let us know that Peter Hansen was no longer in the project. I believe he went to Ireland, but not positive. And now they were partnering with La Rosa Building Group and the Neighbor Works. Ron Penton from the La Rosa Building Group was the person who was, kind of like the lead on this. They also told us that they, this was a competitive application that they were submitting, and that they were going to use that exact PowerPoint and not really make, and there were some changes, but not too many to that meeting that took place. So my husband and I said, okay, they wanted to come to our property to show us, where this easement was. It was April during COVID 2020 at the height of it, but it was, fine. And we walked the property with both Ron and Ann, and it was, a really good meeting. And at that point, we felt very comfortable. So my husband and I, talked with an attorney to figure out, because, we're educators and we're not lawyers and we don't know all this other stuff. So we, got a lawyer to talk to us a little bit about what an agreement would look like. And then on April 30th, we emailed Ron and Ann, and this is again in 2020, that we would consider granting an easement for the property. On July 1st of 2020, we got a letter from Ann showing the agreement with the map. And the reason I mention that is because that map in July of 2020 was attached to the email, still represented exactly the same project. Okay, so we're like, okay, this is good, no problem. Then then about September of 2021, Ann sent us an email with a letter of agreement. There was no phone call. We just got an email, no explanation, just an email with the agreement for my husband and I to sign. And again, I don't know all the protocols here, so I could submit any of this if you want the information. But basically, on September 20th, 2021, we received the letter, and they just wanted us to sign it. But we didn't really, we didn't talk to anybody about it. So I thought, well, that was kind of interesting. So then on December 6, 2021, I received an email from Ron Penton. We found out from that email that he was retiring on December 22nd, 2021, and that Aaron Hoffman from Neighbor Works and I believe it was Kim, I can't pronounce her name, Ganzer from La Rosa, were now in charge of the project. And so he sent us the letter, and attached to that letter is this same map that we were told was going to be the project. Jack's Farm, the one we saw at the Housing Authority, a beautiful piece of property, and a beautiful structure and well thought out. So we're like, okay, this is good. So in December, same day, back and forth, we were emailing back with Aaron. Aaron asked if he could come to our house and speak to my husband and myself about the easement. So we invited Aaron to our home, and he said there were slight changes in the plan. However, we found out that he did say there were two buildings that were going to be into one for cost efficiencies or whatever. He didn't mention anything about the parking lot in the back of the building. He didn't have anything to show us for what the plan would look like. And we were still, at this point, considering granting an easement, but we wanted to see what the new plan was going to look like. We also told him that the first time around, when the association found out about this, that the Housing Authority invited us to their place to show us a PowerPoint. And I said, we're part of an association, so would you speak to the association? So obviously being, kind of a little bit of COVID, we had a Zoom meeting with the association members back in I think it was March. And Aaron was on Zoom, and all the neighbors were in their homes. Some of us were in the street. Aaron didn't have a presentation. He basically said that he didn't have a plan that he could share with us. So we could not see what we had anticipated. So a lot of neighbors expressed, questions and concerns like you hear tonight, and it was a little going back and forth. And so we expected from that meeting, which was, earlier this year, that someone would come back to us with what this plan looks like. Instead, we did not hear about any of the changes officially from anybody from the Housing Authority or from the group that we're working with. I happen to be a paisan of a Cheshire Housing Authority member, where I was quietly told, well, no, don't worry. It's not really going to be that big. There's an access road they need in the back. I'm like, okay, let me see a plan. Here we are, December 2022. The only time we saw a plan was at the last planning and zoning meeting 2 weeks ago. So my husband and I were very trusting when we had Ron talking with us and Ann, but after Ron retired, the communication wasn't there anymore. And so we did not feel comfortable granting an easement, nor were we ever given another opportunity to talk about it, because we wanted to see a plan before we agreed to an easement. And I think that's only fair, that we should see what the plan would actually look like. And as I said, 2 weeks ago was the first time we saw the plan. So I don't want to belabor the point anymore, because I know there's a lot of talk, but really what the reason that we're here with the commission is because this is Section 40 special permit. And in Section 40.4, the planning and zoning has a commission responsibility. And there's a lot of points in that 40.4 section that I'm not going to address, that we kind of agree with, but kind of don't agree with. The only one that I really want to specifically cite is 40.4.7. And that states that the nature of the surrounding area and the extent to which the proposed use of its feature and appearance will be in harmony with the surrounding area, including the effect on property values in the neighborhood. In my opinion, this very large building is not consistent and not in harmony with the surrounding area. When there were two buildings, it was a better attempt to be in harmony in the surrounding area. And as I said, we were in total agreement with the original plan. Clearly, the parking lot behind it is not feasible. I understand there needs to be an access road that was talked a lot about tonight, but that doesn't mean that there needs to be a parking lot back there. The original design which I have here, this big house, little house, back house, barn model, which I'm sure you've seen before, and I think Brendan mentioned it. It was a lovely design. I have pictures, which I can leave here for the record, which show the original plan. As people mentioned, I know you can't see that far. It had the two buildings, but all of this were crops.
I got to slow you down because that plan is not in our, that's not what we're looking at. I understand.
Okay, so we're just
there's
trying, I'm
stuff
just trying to
that came-
explain to you.
I understand there's stuff that came in before you. but
Okay, well,
We have a plan in front of us and we have to act on the
okay,
plan in front
so
of us,
my
I'm
point
sorry.
is that the original plan that was presented was in harmony with what the neighborhood would look like with the single-family homes behind. That was my point. This plan that we have now does not fit into what I believe the harmony of the surrounding area of the neighborhood. So in my opinion, I think the intent of a special permit right now is not being followed. I think it was originally. And the second part is section 44A.1, affordable housing development. In 44.8.3, the building facade should include relief and articulation to appear residential in character. Tonight was the first night we saw the new rendering of the barn. I was prepared this before the drawing. It didn't change my opinion. It clearly does not look like a barn for many reasons. I believe there's still, windows in the back. The silos were stairwells. It's a very, very, very large structure. And it is not residential in character. And that is, I thought, the intent of the special permit. So I'll just end with 2 points. The sewer system with the pump station across the street is not in the best interest of the town of Cheshire. The alternative is to have a gravity sewer, which would have been the easement. Obviously, there's a lot more risks involved when you have a pump station where the sewer may not work. They had the opportunity to do a gravity sewer, and they are not doing this, which is not in the best interest of the town. We were willing to give an easement for the gravity sewer, but after the Zoom meeting with the association, we did not feel comfortable without looking at a plan to grant this. And the second point is, because of how this application has changed, we do not feel that it conforms, as I said, to the harmony of the surrounding area. So we know that there could be an alternative plan, and we would respectfully like to see an alternative plan. I appreciate the work that everybody's doing, going back and forth. And as I said, the original version was absolutely beautiful, but I haven't seen any document presented that said they can't go back to some of the different things that they had in the plan. So I think you can clearly see that we are not opposed to affordable housing. We thought it was going to be really nice. The issue is the trust and the communication, and there was no attempt to modify the plan after listening to the association. So thank you again for all the time that you've given us. I apologize for taking a lot of time, but I just wanted to make sure that our voice was heard. And we would love to see a beautiful Jack's Farm behind our property, not what's presented here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Hi, Karen Martone, Martone, 5 Pondside Place. Wasn't prepared to speak at all, but thank you guys for all you've been doing.
Can you pull the microphone a little closer to you? Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you all for what you've been doing, and for all these guys who've been at all these meetings. I just wanted to kind of piggyback a little bit on what Mr. Pepe was saying about the trust issue, a little bit too with what Ema was just talking about. I have a retaining pond on my property, which we were told would be maintained by the town when they built this neighborhood, because that pond was there first before the big pond got put in. Anyway, the real point of it is it's not maintained by the town. We maintain it ourselves. And it is protected. We can't fill it in. We can't do anything to it. It runs under 2 driveways into the wetlands on the other side of the next house to the right of us. So the basements can back up. There's a whole, and it's spring fed from the big pond. So anyways, my point is, it's not taken care of. We take care of it. It is starting to fill in. no one will come and help us with that. My basic point is we can be told things, but that has to be the real case because sometimes things aren't always done the way they say they're going to be. And these people, but right up to it. And this is a humongous situation that I don't think any of them or us were prepared for. So kind of like comparing that someone said that our pond would be taken care of. It's not. Someone's saying that they're not going to see lights. They may. So I feel like there should be a little bit more reassurance for these people, especially because I'm not on their street. I'm on the next cul-de-sac over. That they're not going to, their lives are not going to be completely upended when this comes in, being something that they never really bargained for. They never thought was going to, I mean, you're talking about buses, fire engines, cameras, lights, dumpsters, snow plows. I mean, that's, you know, it's a lot. It's just a lot. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration when they want to be able to trust that what is said is actually what is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay.
Nora Caligiuri from 10 Mulberry Court. I'm on the right side of Frank Pepe. How can I, just that retention area or whatever that big gray area is, how big is that actually? And what's it going to be filled with? Is it going to be left alone? Is it going to be rock? Is it going to be cement? Is it going to be a pond? Anybody?
You just ask the question. If you have another question, then at the end, they will answer
Okay,
it.
well, I'm asking, what's it going to be filled with?
Okay, thank you. Are you?
Let's go back to Todd Ritchie again for the record. Go back to this plan. You can see this. This is not a gray area on this plan. That is a planted, again, just like the man-made depression that's behind that in the rear of that property now. This will also be a man-made depression in the rear of the property. With it will have grasses, and it will be basically non-mowed area, like a meadow, wet meadow area. So occasionally receiving the stormwater runoff that will then infiltrate into the ground. So that will just be a natural grass area.
And what's its dimension? Like how big, I mean, how big is that building? It's the same size as the building. So how big is that?
I can get a dimension for you, but I'd have to scale it in on my program here. So if you give me a couple minutes, I'll get that for you. Sure.
And my last thing, and this may sound really stupid. I don't even know if it would be stupid. But how is this going to degrade the value of my home? Who's going to want to buy my home with this behind me? I've spent 35 years in that house. I've built up tremendous equity. I've put a lot into my property. Who's going to want to buy a house with that behind it? I'm sorry. Who's going to pay me the difference of the value of my home?
Anyone else in the public wishing to speak? You think we get an answer to the size of the?
Mr. Ritchie is scaling that out now. While he's doing that, I'd like to just say a couple of things. We do appreciate that this project, like any project, has impacts. Such thing as a project that doesn't, I don't believe, and I know this may be hard to convince people of this, but don't believe that if you were to engage the opinion of a professional real estate appraiser, that they would say that a house that has a project, a thoughtfully designed project like this behind it, can't be sold, or for that matter, that there would be a material impact in value. And again, I understand that that may be a little bit hard to persuade people who have lived in a house for many years and have seen a certain thing when they look out their windows. And like any project, it will have an impact, and we don't deny that. However, we believe that we have appropriately mitigated those impacts. And again, every project has impacts, and we're committed to further reasonable modifications to further address those concerns. And I think we've made that clear. The last thing I would like to say, I think it is worth reminding the commission of the special standard under 44A of your regulations and under Section 8-30G of the general statutes. This is not, again, it's worth reminding everyone, this is not a conventional application where the normal standard applies. And I would like to just read what 44A.7.1 subsection A says. It says the commission shall, and again, this takes the normal burden and it flips it right on its head. The commission shall approve an affordable housing development application unless it finds, among other things, I'm just going to focus on the key one, that denial of the application is required to protect substantial public interests in health, safety, or other matters which the commission may legally consider. And I'll stop there. And that's universally interpreted, basically mean public safety, a serious public safety issue or a serious environmental issue. And we clearly don't have that. And then subsection A goes on to say that the commission, even if there is this kind of substantial public safety or environmental problem, which we don't have here, that commission still must then approve the application. Again, I'm just reading what your own regulations say, unless the substantial public interest, again, usually a major safety problem, outweighs the need for affordable housing. The need for affordable housing is taken as a given in the regulation and in 30G of the statutes. And further, the section says that the commission shall approve an application unless whatever this substantial public interest is, which again does not exist here, cannot otherwise be protected by reasonable modification. So again, it's just worth keeping in mind what the actual standard is under your own regulation. It's a special, unusual standard. Thank you.
Didn't you come in under special permit?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you
This-
understand that?
This is not, but
I-
this has a different standard than an ordinary.
I
special
understand that. You did,
Right, but
you
Mr.
did
Hoops-
come in under special permit.
On Mr. Dawson's
I
point.
spoke up
No,
before.
I'm sorry, I was going to try to help you with what you're saying. Go ahead. I was going to pick up on what you're saying.
No, I agree, but I'm just trying to make sure that he and I are communicating the same. We understand, and I don't misunderstand him. But now, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I understand what you're saying about the burden of proof in these cases. At the same time, we have to grant a special permit, and that's a separate regulation to the one you were just quoting. And that regulation, the last speaker pointed out, and hopefully I would have read it myself, but pointed out that one of the considerations on a special permit has to do with the conformity of the project with the neighborhood and the effect on property values. So how does that fit into the mix? I mean,
It doesn't apply here. This standard that I just read is the standard for the special kind of special permit under 44A. This is a different kind. It's a completely different set of rules that supersede the regular rules.
Well, yes, although we're also considering section 40 of our regulations, which is the special permit section. I think that's part of what our decision
Does
process
not,
is.
my opinion, that does not come into play. This
So
supersedes
and
that.
I'm not arguing, I'm just trying to get your opinion.
Right.
Is that section 44 then supersedes that, and particular concerns about conformity with the neighborhood and such, and property values are not bona fide factors in an affordable housing application? Is that what you're saying?
Let me answer two ways. The answer is yes, those factors under 44A should not be taken into account. However, we have approached this application as if it is a conventional application, and we've tried to address all of those concerns, even though we've chosen not to, taken the position in this application that we don't even need to respond to any of those.
No,
We do want people to be happy with this app. We do want people to be happy with our project. We want the commission to be comfortable with it, or I should say, we want them to be as happy as is possible. So that's why we've taken the approach that we're going to treat this like it's a normal application, and because we are pretty confident that even if this was a regular special permit, we would have satisfied our burden.
Well, I think you have done that. You certainly tried, and you still are. You haven't said, you've never said, we won't do something, even now, tonight you haven't said that. I just wanted to hear what you had to say, though, on the law, to get that on the records, for our consideration, frankly.
Right.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, I'll ask for clarification there. So we talked about a lot just now about the special permit. So under the statute, we're looking at number 2. What about number 1 for the zone map change? Where does that fall within the regulation?
So your zone change, it's still, hold on. If you go to section 44A 5.1A and B, that's where the commission is to deny if you're going to deny a zone change made pursuant to this section, there's only 2 instances that you can do that. One is that the property is zoned industrial, residential uses aren't allowed. The other is what Attorney Hoops just stated to you about the petition to protect substantial public interest, health, safety, or other matters they legally could consider. So it really, and he is correct, it does read like 830G, meaning that the burden of proof is on the commission. You have maybe we talk about this when the hearing's closed, like going over the record. You're going to just have to review that record, and it really, and if you're going to say there's something that is documented in the record that outweighs the need for affordable housing, then you could deny the zone change. However, that bar is high because of how these regulations are written. Similar, like I said, to 830G, the general state statutes.
Gotcha. I'm not advocating right now for denying it, but I just wanted that clarification.
You have a size on that?
Yes, quickly for the record, Todd Ritchie. The stormwater basin is roughly 200 to 210 feet if you're measuring from the bottom or top of the slope of the basin, long by 40 to 50 feet wide.
Okay, thank you. And the last speaker of the evening.
My name's Patrick Thibodeau at 11 South Pond Circle. Do you need the spelling of my name? Adeau. Yes. What the original plan was for 30 units, now it's 45 units. As everybody has expressed, it's not the project itself people aren't against. It's the monstrosity of this huge building that's totally out of character. And I think the modification of that should be taken into consideration. And I think a lot of problems would go away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, heard a lot tonight. Public hearing is going to be held open. Anyone that wants to visit the site, please do so. If you can, contact Mr. Glidden first, and he can give a heads up to Mr. Greenspan or whoever might be in the area to let them know that we're coming. So other than that, it'll be held open, and thank you all for coming. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public hearing. Move Mr. Kaderis, seconded by Mr. Salma. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Mr. Terrell is here.